Hey everybody, I'm here Facebook Live. It's Deborah Dunbar, and today I have J P Sloan,
How you doing?
my co-author of the White Lightning series. So what we're going to do today is we've got a bunch of stuff going on. We're going to start off with Sam's playlist, which means I have to go find my phone because I'm not sure what I did with that. We will do that, and then I will make some announcements, and then we're going to start drinking our way through Wooden Nickels. So I will be right back. I'm going to go get my phone. JP, entertain these people.
You guys probably have no idea who I am, but let me introduce myself. I'm J P Sloan. I am an author of urban fantasy, much like Deb
Critical
is.
battery, please charge.
The speaker's freaking me out, man.
My speaker.
But Deb and I were a part of the same critique group for a while, and our kids played together a little bit. I don't live very far away, so we decided, what the heck, let's go ahead and do this thing together and do this urban fantasy cooperative co-authoring project, which I have been really enjoying so far.
It's been fun. Okay, now we've got Sam's playlist going on here. Here's the deal with Sam's playlist. It's a contest I do every time I do a Facebook Live, and the idea is I play a song that would be on Sam's playlist because, as you know, Satan likes all kinds of interesting music. And then you guys need to comment in the comments section on the title of the song and who sings it, and I will pick a random winner to get a prize pack, including a signed paperback. So fun, fun, fun. All right, here we go. Okay, moving on. Next things. Big announcement. There will be a Sam holiday short story coming up. I don't have a release date yet, but Sam's Christmas. It's going to be called Down the Chimney. So you guys can think of that. It's going to be funny. There will be lots of laughs. Somebody asked when the next Imp World book is coming out. There's a new series that's coming out in 2019. I don't have a date for that yet. I'm just now starting to rearrange my schedule and figure out what books are coming and at what time frame. So, but definitely look for that. You'll get a couple Imp World books next year in the new series, some additional Templar books, and the continuation of that series, and some new lighthearted, funny stuff in my Love Spells brand, Exonal Witches. So that's what's coming up. We're going to start drinking. We're ready to drink. Okay, here we go. Wooden Nickels. So Wooden Nickels, we've got, okay, now I have to turn this off because as much as I like it, it's driving me crazy. It's distracting me. Squirrel, squirrel. So, okay, Wooden Nickels, there's a whole lot of booze going on in Wooden Nickels because, yeah, a whole lot of booze. So I made a list of all the different booze in Wooden Nickels, and much like one of those college drinking games, where you watch a show and then you take a shot every time somebody says.
I've never done that.
You
never once.
Seriously? You're joking, right? Okay, you got to be joking. Like, woo. Okay, so just like one of those, we're going to do the drinks through Wooden Nickels. So the first one I totally forgot about, and I remembered last night, and I didn't, because it's like Sunday, and tried to go out Sunday and find an open liquor store. So we don't have this one. But the very first scene in the book has Hattie with a load of really cheap, nasty brandy in the trunk of the truck that she's hauling, that they're distributing down south to Virginia. We have no brandy, so I am crossing that one off the list. Sorry, guys, you will not see us drinking brandy. The next one on the list is moonshine. There's a lot of instances of moonshine in these books because it was fast, it was cheap. Pretty much anybody could jury rig a still and put it together. So, have you made any moonshine? Have you made it yourself?
I have not done any distilling personally. Okay. I make beer, I make wine, I make liqueurs, but distilling is that next level of dangerous that I'm kind of going to leave that to professionals.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you live in a nice development, and they may not appreciate, a big copper thing blowing up in your backyard.
Well, no joke. The apparatus I use to chill my beer when I'm making beer is a copper coil, and I have had a county police officer stop, back up to my backyard, and say, "What you doing over there?" And so I invited him in to show him the brewing process, and he ended up he wouldn't take the beer because he wanted to.
Yeah.
He wanted a bottle, but he said he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But I think I convinced him I was legit at that point.
I would have been bad. I would have been like, "I'm cooking meth." you know.
Oh yeah.
And then like ended up in jail and.
Yeah, I don't need that kind of drama.
That's I wouldn't have been able to resist that one. So we have moonshine. So there's a whole lot of moonshine that occurs. One is the little bar that Raymond and Hattie go to on their way back up the bay, and they have a drink of moonshine there. And then in midway through the book, Hattie has some moonshine at the Fontainebleau because she can't afford anything else, and it's a cheap way to get drunk fast. And then our favorite moonshiners in West Virginia,
Dry Fork Brothers.
The Dry Fork Brothers. They also make moonshine, and they got some big barrels of moonshine. And if you read the book, you'll know all about the Dry Fork Brothers, and you'll get into a little bit about West Virginia moonshine manufacture. And tomorrow, Bum's Rush releases, and you'll get even more about West Virginia moonshine and illegal. Yes. So we got some additional people there. Okay, so here we are. We're gonna drink some moonshine.
All right.
And okay, I've got my White Lightning shot glasses here, which you can buy. Oh my gosh, I feel like one of those infomercials. You too can own these and can own the Deborah Dunbar t-shirts. I've got merchandise on my website. So if you're ever interested in any of this stuff, please go to the website, and there's a tab up there to tell you where to get it. The shirts and all are through Amazon. These are actually through my website. So moonshine. All right, what we got? Let's pour this.
We got two guys. We got some moonshine from Tennessee. Some of you folks may be familiar with this brand in Tennessee, outside of Gatlinburg. This is apple pie moonshine. Apple, cinnamon, a little clove and allspice in it.
Just a little, because we got a lot of booze.
I'm being gentle. I'm being gentle.
I'm like,
this stuff though, you have a little bit and it doesn't taste bad. This is good.
Okay, because I'm not much of I'm more of a beer wine. Cheers. Cheers. Yes. That smells good. All right, I'm doing it.
Not bad. This is not the bracing White Lightning that they were drinking in the book.
Oh yeah. This is much better.
Yeah.
This is good. I'll buy some of this.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
Can you get that around here? Or do I have to?
Yes, you can. That is Old Smoky brand. They're a big outfit outside of Gatlinburg, and you can get it.
I'm making a note.
Anywhere on the East Coast I'm aware of.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I'd drink that. I almost wrote down mood shine. I've had less than a shot, and I'm already mood shine.
Something that's a little more interesting. This is a little closer to what they were drinking in the book. This is a lemon meringue moonshine. It's made from it's a local distiller called Dragon Distillery makes this.
Yeah, Dragon.
Yeah. Now, these guys are local, a small outfit. They operate out of a little warehouse. Interesting thing about these guys, the man who owns and operates this is the grandson of a man who was arrested in Prohibition for making moonshine.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, that's why they're some of their labels have his grandfather's mugshot on them.
So cool.
Yeah, he's legit. He's legit. The legitness. So you've had a nice, easy pouring moonshine. This is not going to be nice and easy. I'm just giving you a splash on that one.
Oh God.
God bless them. They're small business owners.
I can smell it from here.
But their stuff is unkind. It's more authentic. Let's call it authentic.
Yeah. Okay. Oh God. Here we go.
All right.
Oh. Jesus. God. All right.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
That'll clean your tool out, right?
Oh my God. But it's not bad. I mean, I thought it was going to be, like sandpaper going down my throat, kind of harsh. Yeah. It kicks like a mule, but it definitely has that lemon flavor to it, which kind of mitigates the.
Now, I did take a tour of this guy's distillery, and I don't know what your readers know about distillation, but as you distill the mash from the corn mash or rye or whatever they've chosen to make, back in Prohibition, it was just a little bit of everything. It creates a lot of evaporation that you distill out. And the very front of it has a lot of the harsher alcohols, some of which are downright toxic to drink. And then you get into the pure ethanol as you get to the middle. And then at the end, you get some more of the shorter chain organic compounds that you got to toss out because it's like acetones, things that just are unpalatable. So the middle cut is what you want when you're distilling, and you want to throw out the heads and the tails. This guy walked me through all this, and he's got this dialed in on his system. So his stuff is a little bracing, but it's, you know, still, it's fairly clean, fairly clean.
Yeah, I mean, that was very drinkable. And we go more into the distillation process in Bum's Rush, where there's actually a chapter where Hattie goes and experiences it firsthand. So that's really cool. Oh, next thing along is apple wine. Okay, that little honky tonk coming up the bay that Raymond and Hattie went to.
Maudits?
Yes, which I keep wanting to call Merlot's, which is
right.
a place in New Orleans. So Maudits. But anyway, it's a little honky tonk. It's right on the bay, kind of sticks out on the water, and it's like, you know, on a pier, so it's, you know, it's just there. It's real rough, and it's all locals go there. A lot of the African Americans go there because, you know, we're talking 1920s here, and segregation was in full force, and there weren't places where people of color were allowed to go. So, you know, they cherished the places of their own that they had to go, and Hattie was welcome there because she was with Raymond, who, you know, who let her in the door as a friend, and they had a shot of moonshine, and then Raymond got some apple wine for them to help out. So here's the deal with the apple wine. I wanted to get, there's a local place called Linganore Wineries, and they do like an apple spice wine, which of course it's fall, so I'm sure it's really popular. Nobody had it. And when I talked to the distributors, they all said that actually Linganore Wine Cellars was backed up on it, so it just wasn't available. So I got this instead. I have no idea what this tastes like. I've heard it's very sweet. I'm not really... it's obviously effervescent because it's got this, like,
it's got a cage on it.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure about this one. But.
So here's the irony, is that I regularly make apple wine at home. And just yesterday, I have a batch in process. I started clarifying. Just wasn't ready for today.
Yeah, I did that.
That's fine. You're at your office.
I know. It's my house. I just had to make sure the dogs don't eat it later. My hellhounds will eat everything. All right. Let's see this. Okay.
All right,
I'm not pointing this towards my expensive computer equipment. There we go.
That was a good year.
Oh God, this is going to be disgustingly sweet. So here we are drinking moonshine, and now we drink this nasty sweet stuff. So I don't know. It could be good. I don't want to like diss this place here.
You can't judge a bottle by its cover.
Oh, I know. It's got a big red apple on it. So here we go.
Not much else.
Here we go. Apple wine. Right. Unlike the stuff Hattie was drinking, this stuff is effervescent, and it's probably a little sweeter, but that's not bad.
I've had worse.
Yeah. I mean, it's not heinous.
It's not that sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like
cough syrup,
cloyingly.
Yeah.
Well, and I get, oh my gosh, my family's going to kill me, but I get a sparkling Moscato.
Yeah.
That my brother and his family just adore, and it's super sweet. It's good, it's really good, but it's super sweet. This is not that sweet.
And this is a rosé, as you saw, and this does remind me of Angry Orchard's rosé.
It does.
Yeah, which is a decently balanced, cider. If you're into ciders, check that one out.
That's a funny thing because I almost bought a cider. I was like, if I can't find an apple wine, I'm just going with a hard cider. But,
well, technically, the term apple wine doesn't have a strong definition. To call something an apple wine, it should be still and it should have wine strength. But you know what? Back in the days of Prohibition, when you're just making your own personal use beverage, it was probably no difference between cider and apple wine.
Yeah. So, okay, moving on, we're going to drink some whiskeys here. Alton, who is Hattie's father, is a good old Irish boy, and he likes his whiskey. And he has a bottle of whiskey that he keeps in a little, what is that? It's like under the floorboard, or no? It's in the.
He keeps it in his oven, I think.
Is it? No, that's
Benson keeps his in his oven.
Yeah, you had to hide your booze back then. It was illegal.
It was his toe cake. Yeah, it was a toe cake. It was cabinet.
Yeah, that's right. There's a little cabinet trim in the bottom, and it pops out, and it's. I need to make one of those. I wish I had one of those. So Alton has a bottle of Canadian whiskey, which is pretty nice because a lot of the whiskey at this point in Prohibition in 1926 was kind of homemade and not really that great. So he's managed to score himself a bottle of Canadian whiskey. So I've got the good stuff here. Get the skinny bottle.
Right.
Yep. This is Crown Royal. So I don't think Alton has quite that nice.
She has a decanter, guys.
Oh my God, you're showing them the decanter.
Look at that.
All right, I have a thing for booze decanters. I only have 2 of them right now, but I intend on having more eventually.
Deb's bougie.
I am.
Just a little bit of that.
I do that from my espresso maker.
So Canadian whiskey was highly prized during Prohibition, as the local whiskey you get from the Appalachians or in the Rockies tended to be of a low quality and rushed. Canadians, they were still making whiskey the old-fashioned way, taking their time with it and doing a good job with it.
Because they didn't have Prohibition.
But it was expensive and hard to get.
Yeah, all this whiskey, if you had Canadian whiskey during Prohibition, that meant it usually came across the Great Lakes, usually in Cleveland, didn't it? Yeah, it was where most of the whiskey.
Cleveland and up by Minnesota sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes through like Niagara Falls
but
area.
The feds were really crawling around New York.
Yeah. Trying to get the whiskey through past Canada. So, I mean, there were other ways to smuggle in your booze, but if you were a distributor and you paid off the right people and you were able to get some Canadian whiskey in, it would sell for a good price. So you could make some money doing that. Right. So here we go. Some Crown Royal.
Oh, Canada.
So, good stuff.
Is that straight Crown Royal or is that...
No, it's the vanilla.
Okay, I was about to say, that tastes a lot sweeter than I remember Crown Royal. All right.
Yeah, I had regular Crown Royal, but last year I had a cold, and Crown is kind of my go-to with my hot tea. I do chamomile tea and a little bit of honey and a shot of Crown Royal, and I must have had a lot of cold. That's my excuse. I had a lot of colds last year, so I drank all the Crown Royal, and so now it's Crown Royal honey or Crown Royal vanilla.
Well, Crown has really branched out their whiskeys now. They actually have a rye now that they make, and I just noticed the other week they have they call it a bourbon whiskey. But as you know, well, you may not know, you're not allowed to call your whiskey bourbon if it's not made in the state of Kentucky in the United States. It's kind of like champagne. It's a sparkling wine unless it's made in Champagne. But,
or Cava,
right?
Or Prosecco.
It's a protected thing. But Crown Royal is starting to make a sour mash whiskey that's done twice through a charcoal filter, which makes it their best version of bourbon.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a Canadian Invasion. That's our stuff, man.
I'll have to try that. I'll have to try that. Okay. So next what we're going to do, I'm going to like rearrange my schedule here because I don't want to have gin in the middle of whiskey.
Thank you.
So, yeah, like, next we're going to look at when Vincent was down in Richmond doing his tour of Richmond. One of the nice things in their little speakeasy that they had was some Kentucky whiskey, which again was hard to get. I mean, most of the Kentucky whiskey by 1926 that you were getting was the same bootleg bathtub whiskey, rushed and not real high quality. You were getting all over the place. But if you were lucky, then you would have gotten some pre-Prohibition whiskey that somebody had set aside, much like people would do now. Oh, I'm going to set this aside and I'm going to sit on it for a couple years until demand really is there and supply is dwindling, and then I'm going to sell it for big bucks. So, Suspenders, who was the bartender in Richmond, had this nice bottle back there that Capstein had him go get, blow the dust off of Kentucky whiskey. So it sounds funny to say that because now you can just go get Kentucky whiskey anywhere.
It's a different time, though.
Yeah, and it's just not a big deal. But so I have some Jack Daniels, and that's in the big decanter, which... This is a fun decanter. This was one of my parents' decanters. So it's not antique, but it's a nice decanter. And this is my dad has a bottle of a giant gallon bottle of Jack Daniels regular down there, but in this decanter it's Jack Daniels honey. So again, this was a flavored, so it's going to be a little sweeter than the regular Jack Daniels.
So as a sidebar, since you brought up Jack Daniels,
yes,
I just mentioned the requirements to call something a bourbon, and a lot of people have a misconception. Jack Daniels does not make bourbon.
Nope.
They may not make bourbon. In fact, they went out of their way to redefine an entire new liquor. It's called a Tennessee Sour Mash Whiskey. And they're literally the only people who make it. I mean, maybe there's some guys down the road, but they operate in a dry county, and they're the only ones in the world who make this. But they're the #1 whiskey seller in the world.
Yep.
There you go. So,
and, it's a popular whiskey, and it goes down smooth.
Now that's sweet.
Yeah, it's way sweeter.
That's the honey.
This is the honey.
All right.
Yeah, regular Jack Daniels, I find it's pretty smooth. I mean, you know, if I'm sitting in a bar, I usually go for an Irish, whiskey. That's kind of,
Okay.
it's St. Patty's Day. I don't drink a ton of whiskey other than when I have a cold and I'm putting it in my tea.
Well, unlike Deb, I do drink a ton of whiskey. But my preference is bourbon. I'm a bourbon guy.
Really?
Yeah.
What's your favorite bourbon?
1792.
Oh,
that is my regular walking around. It's made by
walking around.
My walk around whiskey. It's not my Glenrothes Scotch. You know, it's not like Blanton's or Booker's.
Yeah.
You can get a fifth of it for like $35.
Yeah.
It's made by the same people who I think make Woodford Reserve.
See, that's my friend. I'm going to give a shout out to Christy Woods, who is my friend. That is like Woodford Reserve is her. Now she's a whiskey girl. That's her whiskey. I like that. I'll do the occasional shot of Jameson if it's St. Patty's Day.
Okay.
But it's funny. I'm Scottish. Dunbar. I mean, get that. I don't like Scotch. It's too peaty.
I'm a Sloan. That's an Irish name, and I don't like Irish whiskey.
We need to swap.
I like
swap
Irish whiskey. I don't think you want my heritage. My heritage is a little sketchy. I'll tell you that.
Well, I think mine is too. I'm not gonna
Okay.
We Dunbars were a wild crowd. So, all right. So now we're gonna move on to my least favorite alcohol ever, and my father's favorite alcohol ever, gin. You better talk about gin because all I got to say is bad stuff.
Okay, I got a lot to say about gin. By the way,
and we're gonna switch glasses because gin and whiskey do not go well together.
So gin was the beverage throughout most of the British Empire for no specific reason except that it caught on. It is the original gone viral beverage. Now they did mix gin a lot with quinine-laced water. For those in the British Empire who went to India, Central Africa.
So like your tonic, gin and tonic almost.
Well, the gin and tonic was a palliative for malaria because quinine, even today, we use it to stave off the effects of malaria. Now, gin actually gave birth to the porter beer. Figure that one out. Because gin got so popular, it was too expensive for the average river porter in London to purchase. And so the brewers there in London decided to make a beverage that they could afford, and they made the porter's beer, which is the porter we're familiar with today.
I love porter. It's a poor man's stout, and I love it.
Well, it was actually, it predates the stout. The stout is actually, the proper name for stout is the stout porter. And it was made by the Irish because they couldn't afford the brown malts in from England. They would roast their malt to black patent, which is why stouts are darker and drier. They have an ashy kind of quality to it. It's all connected to gin. It goes back to gin because everyone wanted it, no one could afford it.
Thank God, because I hate gin. I'm happy to drink a porter. All right, so I'm gonna buckle down and drink this gin.
There's all kinds of gin in the world. Gin is one of the liquors that's most open to interpretation because all you need are some botanicals and some juniper is very often a required element for gin. That's where gin comes from, juniper. But this is Joust Gin. This is from the same folks that we had that lemon meringue, local in Frederick, Dragon Distillery.
Oh, wow.
Dragon Distillery. This is a local small shop. The guy who's related to the actual bootleggers. This is not a Tanqueray or Beefeater style gin. This is a highly botanical. This is more like a botanical schnapp than a gin.
Okay, I hope so. I'll drink.
I'll give you just a little bit of that.
I'll drink a botanical, but I'm not.
Yeah, this is very botanical. There's a lot of coriander and lavender in this. I can tell you, you can tell I'm smelling it. And that is what you see.
Oh, God.
What's that gin company that's Hendrix? Hendrix makes a big deal about making it with lavender and cucumber. But, so here's our gin.
God.
Properly, we should have this on ice because they'd have this on ice with some seltzer, a gin fizz.
And I gotta say, I'm obviously stalling here. As you get into the White Lightning series, you will find that a character that shows up at the end of Bum's Rush, the bar, who's a pitcher up in Philadelphia. He's a gin connoisseur. He actually really loves gin. And you'll see in the book 3 when it comes out, Clip Joint, you'll see that he's very funny about how he prepares it. It's, it's chilled, it's on ice. He's got, his different little, additives. What does he do, lime or cucumbers or?
Well,
What does he do with his gin?
Well, technically,
Delaying.
I did a little thing. I'm going to delay further.
I'm stalling.
I had a fellow who used to love martinis, and he would add a drop of scotch in his martinis. And he declared that made all the difference. I tried it. You can't taste scotch over gin. You really can't. So anyway, let's stop stalling. Let's move on.
God, okay.
Here's your gin. Straight for some reason. Here we go.
Oh, God.
And that's vile. That's vile.
God, that is nasty stuff. Oh, God. I feel like I'm like crying a little. I feel like I'm back in college doing.
That is not an enjoyable thing to shoot.
Oh, that was horrible.
God,
I hate gin.
A little Tanqueray and Sprite is okay in the summertime when it's super hot, but that straight, I've got lavender and coriander crawling up my nostrils.
But you know what?
Right now,
Thank God I've got lavender and coriander crawling up my nostrils because it's better than that frickin' juniper taste. It's like Mr. Clean, like went up my nose.
You should force yourself to shoot this when you have your colds. Because I think that's going to air out your nostrils a little bit.
You know what?
It's like vapor rub.
Sushi. All I need is some good wasabi, and that'll take care of it. But oh my God, that was just. The only saving grace for that was the coriander and the lavender.
Well, yeah.
Otherwise, I'd have been like. So my dad likes Tanqueray. That's what he drinks, and he loves his gin martinis, which is really funny because his brother, who's a huge martini fan, likes vodka martinis, which, I mean, that's my thing, but I like vodka. So does Sam, but, we're all vodka girls. But anyway, so Dad likes Tanqueray martinis, and he's always been a big fan of that. And I remember even as a little kid, like him, it'd be Friday night, and he'd be, like, home from work, which late, because, Dad always worked really late hours, and he'd come home, and that would be his thing. He'd make this nice little Tanqueray martini for himself, and he'd sit there and drink it, and that would be his thing. And I never got into the gin.
The martini defined American culture from the 40s through the 60s.
And it was the drink. I mean, I joke about Mad Men all the time on TV, and I mean that was the drink. And I'm old as dirt, so I remember a time where I would go into my dad's office at work, and there would be a bar. Well, not only like ashtrays, huge glass ashtrays full of cigarette butts and ashes, but there would also be like this bar with whiskey and gin and all these mixers, and you would have a client in, and you would make your client a drink.
Right.
And, I mean, that's like unheard of nowadays. But
back then it was business.
Yeah, that was doing business. As you were not serious about your business unless you treated your client to a drink, and you guys sat and smoked cigarettes, or if you were into it, you would have cigars, and you'd offer your client a cigar.
And in that time period, we had a lot of gender disparity where the men went and did men things, women went and did the women things. But the weird thing is liquor from the 40s to the 60s was oddly egalitarian.
Yes.
Women and men both drank martinis. They both drank the same drinks. And it was oddly, commingling in a way that we don't have to. Now we brand everything. What are you drinking? Are you really going to drink that? Should you put a dress on? I've had someone ask me that in a bar once.
Yep.
I did go back to that bar because I thought that was needless.
I went on like a huge hike this weekend, and it's a really fun group because we hike and then we go to a pub and we have a drink. And one of the guys there ordered a pumpkin beer, and I mean, and people were kind of teasing him about a pumpkin beer, about being girly, and it's like I've drank some pumpkin beers that are like some pretty well made serious beers. But yeah, you're right. I mean, in the 20s, it just seemed like, there was so much going on in the early part of the 20th century. I mean, women got the vote. Women in World War I, it was not until World War II were women really in the workforce, but World War I was the start of that. I mean, you started to have some women in the workforce, and with Prohibition, suddenly women drank. And it used to be, women would have a glass of wine, and then maybe, the men would retire to another room to have like, port and hard liquor, and women would maybe have a small glass of sherry, but, women were not drinkers. And suddenly in the 20s, you had these women that were flappers that were out there that were dancing, and they cut their hair, and they didn't wear bras, and they were, drinking.
Yes, exactly. The jazz age was enormous. It brought women into a social scenario they've never enjoyed before. They could be in the middle of the city amongst men, showing more skin than they have ever historically shown before.
Above the knee. Woo-hoo-hoo.
They were in control of their hairstyle and their hats. And they were dancing, they were drinking, they were smoking. Smoking was a huge deal in the jazz age.
Women did not smoke in the 19th century. So, wow.
It was this little window. And then War II happened. And at one point, women went to the workforce and demonstrated their ability to contribute to the economy. And then when the boys came home.
Rosie the Riveter.
Yeah. When the boys came home, we had a swing. The pendulum swung, and then women, it was taken away. Now their looks, their appearance, and their prescribed social role was now prescribed to them again, and they didn't have the agency they had in the 20s. Which is a damn tragedy. After
World War II, it was all like women are supportive of the men that have returned from the war. But you know, from what I know, I mean, from, you know, my parents, my grandparents, and talking to them, it was a strange thing. It's like, you know, that was their role, but there was that seed there. That was that seed that we are strong. We can do this. If we need to weld shit, we can go weld shit. You know, we are not like, you know, we'll stand here in our pretty dresses with our hair done and make our meatloafs and our aspics, which, you know, were like the god-awful aspics. We'll talk someday about aspects. But so the Jell-O stuff with vegetables in it. God, well, who does that?
This entire website's making fun of those.
I've eaten them. But
dear God,
with
so
like
sorry.
meat in them.
I'm so sorry.
Jell-O with meat in it. Oh my God, it's horrible stuff.
I don't want fruit in Jell-O.
Well, a good Waterford salad Jell-O. Oh God, I'm too old. See, that's the stuff. Okay, we're moving on here. Right. Enough.
We got a little political there.
Yes, well, you know what? And that's what, I hate to say it, but if you look at my books, then you'll clearly see the M series might be funny as heck, but there's definitely a philosophical and there's definitely some political vibes in there that you'll see. And White Lightning is no different. I mean, that's what I am. I will spin a good story and JP too, and we'll spin a good story together, but there's always that undercurrent of, because how can the good guys win if we're not addressing these issues? So that's
White Lightning deals a lot with race politics, you know, and not to put too fine a point on it, but very often the nature of these pinchers, the magic users in the series, are to a degree an analog of minorities during segregation. And you're going to get a lot of that as you progress through the series. It's not heavy-handed. I don't want to make it sound like we're like on a soapbox, but you know, when you are opening up these books, that's a gin kicking in, you're going to get a little more than just a page turner. We really want to give you something to chew on a little bit. Yeah.
So, okay, now we're going to do something really fun. JP is going to be our mixologist. There is a drink when Vincent goes to Richmond, and it's called a Satin Susie.
Right.
And I, you know, when he sent me the draft and I looked at it and I was like, I have no idea.
That's totally a thing.
I have no idea what the frick Satin Susie is.
It's a thing.
But,
it's
you
totally
know, I was like, ooh, it's salty and sweet and alcohol-y. And I was like, I kind of want to drink this. And it's like god-awful pink. So I was like, okay, we're going to do this. So JP's going to make a Satin Susie. Here we go.
Now, I am not a professional mixologist. I'll say it right now.
I actually have the certificate, you know. I did this.
What?
I did.
Okay, I want that for my birthday present.
All right. While JP's making this, I'll tell you guys the story because I'm like a little on the tipsy side, so I'm revealing stuff. So that's what, you know what, the dogs will get it later. They'll be like, "Ooh, ice cube."
Guys, don't shoot moonshine. You can do that.
But so anyway, what I did is, you know, I had all these years. I graduated with an English literature degree, and then I went on and sold computer products for a living and sales and marketing and did all this other stuff. And wait, where was I going with this? I totally lost my thread. Was I saying?
I'm making a drink. You go for it.
Oh my God, what was I talking about? Jeez, this is what happens. See, I've totally lost my mind now. I don't know. I was saying something and I don't know what I was saying. But mixologist, that's it. Well, anyway, so I worked for a bunch of companies, including a very small privately owned software development firm, and I was the director of marketing there. And this was the type of company, sadly, where you got your paycheck 2 weeks late, and then you immediately ran to the bank and cashed it before depositing the cash because you were terrified that your paycheck was going to bounce. That's how bad it was. When I left that company, I was like in not a good state of mind about the corporate world. So I went and took bartending classes at a place and got like an actual certificate, and promptly put all my stuff in a Jeep and drove to Florida with my dog.
Really?
And in my Macintosh. This was a Mac 5K because I'm that old. And I put my Mac 5K and my dog and like a couple of backpacks in the Jeep, drove to Florida, and bartended on the beach for 3 months while writing the Great American Novel, which I never published because it was not the Great American Novel. But yeah.
Interesting.
So I bartended for 3 months,
Right.
at Daytona, at Cocoa Beach and in Cape Canaveral, Port Canaveral.
Well, let's have her critique my recipe because an
author
would never throw something into an author would never throw something into a manuscript without thoroughly researching it. I completely made up the name, but as penance, she made me create a recipe. So here we go.
I did.
I tried to make it prohibition sort of. So we got rye whiskey. Rye.
I love rye whiskey.
It's a kind of whiskey made from rye as the mash.
I love rye. Now I have to say, rye beers, I have a thing for rye beers. So any of you out there, if you send me a rye beer, I will love you forever. I love rye beers. So rye whiskey is my thing, yeah.
All right. The Satin Susie, here's your recipe. You get about 1.5 ounces of rye whiskey. Add to that about the same amount, 1.5 ounces of pineapple juice. And about a 1/2 ounce of grenadine.
Okay, I'm iffy about the grenadine. I don't like sweet stuff. I'm a little like...
This is not that sweet.
Okay.
I actually tried this with vodka and rum.
Okay, there we go.
Give it a shake.
He does that way better than I did. I'm much like...
Strain it over ice in a rocks glass.
I'm mean with it.
You know what? I'm just going to use one of these. I don't think we need 2 of these.
All right, and then just divide it.
Float with a little ginger beer.
I like ginger beer. Okay.
If I garnish, I would garnish with a lemon slice and a cherry, but there you go.
Are we sharing this? Because I'm not drinking this.
Okay,
here we go. Oh, I like it.
Yep.
Okay, bad. The ginger beer, I love the ginger beer. That's really good.
Yeah. See?
Okay, note that down. All right, here's the deal. I am going to put that recipe somewhere, probably on my website, maybe. And look, it's pink as shit. I will put that on my website. Maybe I'll put that on my Facebook page. I'll put it everywhere. It's going to be everywhere. Splash across the world. So anyway, I'll do that, and that way you guys can make it at home. So
I'll make it a little later.
Satin Susie. All right, I'm keeping this. All right. All right, now here we go. Hobos, they go to the Hobo Island. Hattie and Vincent, who at the time is a little clueless about some certain events.
Yep.
And they go to the Hobo Island, and Hattie gets some information from her hobo buddies. Hattie is really cool in that, I mean, she's the original tomboy as far as I'm concerned. I mean,
she's a businesswoman.
Yeah. I mean, but she's more than a businesswoman. I mean, she does what it needs to do to get stuff
She'll
done.
jump into the mud and put on the high waders and get it done.
Yeah, it's like, and she's not like, oh, my nails or anything like that. So I kind of like, I identify with Hattie. So she's hanging out with the hobos there. She's getting information from them. And in return for information, she gives them, sometimes she'll bring them food and stuff, but sometimes she brings them booze, which the hobos really like to have booze. So here's the deal. They have a bottle of grappa, which evidently, is it grappa or grappa?
Grappa.
Grappa. Okay.
Grappa.
Duh. But anyway, I've never had grappa in my life. Never. But here's the deal. I went to Italy a few years ago. And while in Italy, and I was in the north part of Italy, in Lake Como, I went to a really lovely winery in a castle. And if you read my half-read series, you will get to see all about that and that information, because I actually used it as a setting of one of my books. But I ended up buying, go ahead and grab that grappa, and I will the Casa Vermella.
Wow.
So here we go. This is a really amazing grappa. It was made by Castle de Vermella, and it comes from Italy. So I actually have this bottle of grappa from Italy. This is not your cheap stuff.
That's legitness.
This is legit. And it's made out of, there's a special kind of Moscato grape that only grows in a certain section of Italy. So it's very, it's very local.
Okay.
And they are extremely well known, this vineyard and winery is, for their Moscato wine based on this grape. And then they take the leavings, which is, you know, and you can speak more to this. They take the leavings of that, and that's how they make the grappa. So you tell about how the grappa is made, because I don't know that stuff.
Well, grappa is probably the most bargain basement liquor you can buy. I mean, it really is a legit prohibition liquor. Whenever you press grapes to make wine, you know, you get the juice, which is...
You would open this. Go ahead.
Ignore her. Lecture time's here. Yeah, entertainment's over there. What they would do is they'd take all of the pressings from the grapes, the stems, the skins, and everything. There's a whole lot of that just left behind after they pressed all the must out and made wine with it. And they figured, what's a damn shame that all this flavor and stuff is still here. They would take all of those and just put it into a barrel and add some water and sugar. Sometimes they add sugar. The modern day grappa adds sugar to it. And they would allow a secondary fermentation to occur. And you know, grapes hold lots of wild yeast. And so there's lots of secondary fermentation that happens. And they would take that, make that as a mash, and then they would distill that. And once they distill what they made basically a sour mash out of the leavings from wine pressings. And that's what grappa is. It's inexpensive. It's very often used as an after-dinner cordial or an aperitif. And if it's really nice, which I'm expecting, this is going to be top shelf.
Yeah.
It can be quite a nice little interior meal.
And that's what, when I was in Italy, you know, Daniela, who's a friend of mine, who is, she's Italian and her family is from Italy. Her father's American and her mother is Italian. And they're from northern Italy. And she told me that this is a typical after dinner drink. So yeah, you would have, like, much like you would have a limoncello or something like that, you would also have a little grappa after dinner. So I've not tried this, and I've never had grappa before in my life.
I think you're going to like it.
This is a first. So cheers.
Nice. Again, it's meant to be sipped, not shot, but
yeah,
you know, it's nice digestive.
That's not bad. It reminds me a lot of vodka, but it's got like a smooth after finish to it that vodka does not have.
Well, fun fact, you can make vodka from white grapes.
Wow.
So yeah,
okay.
It's not dissimilar.
It was a potato thing.
It can be wheat, it can be potato. It's vodka is a very loosely defined liquor. So.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. So there's our grappa that the hobos enjoyed. All right, now we're on to our final drink. Thank God, because I'm like kind of trashed at this point. So we're gonna do some champagne. So I do not like have actual champagne. This is Corbel, so it's a California champagne. So even though it has the word champagne on the label, it's not an official champagne because it's not French. So.
See, sparkling white fruit.
Yep, and I like Brut because it's dry and, you know, it's sort of your go-to champagne. All right, let's see if I can get this. All right, do you want to talk about, well, you already talked about champagne, so, get the, grab the flutes up there.
Oh, right.
And, all right. All right, here we go. I'm getting it. All right, here's the deal with champagne flutes. Not only am I totally bougie, but I'm a bit of a glassware snob, if you haven't discovered from my decanters of whiskey. And I'm the one that's like, I like glassware through the ages, what people drank in different glasses. I think it's really interesting, like how people drank whiskey. It wasn't always in a rocks glass. It was, you know, for a long time you drank them in these, they were like freaking juice glasses. Like in the 40s, you would see these people with these like tall, sort of straight, you know, I mean, look like the old Fred Flintstone glasses I drank my juice out of as a kid. And you would drink whiskey out of that. It was really a strange thing. And rocks glasses, I mean, nowadays, people call them lowball glasses, but they weren't really called that until mid-century. And before that, they were called old-fashioned or rocks glasses. Right. And what happened is around mid-century, there was always a highball glass. And I mean, it was, you know, used for the highball drink.
Skinny and tall.
Yeah, skinny, tall. And then around mid-century, suddenly people started referring to the, you know, as opposed to skinny and tall, short and fat, as a lowball glass. So where you know, nowadays you go in and call it a lowball glass, you know, back in the 20s and 30s and 40s, it was really rocks or an old-fashioned glass. Now we get into flutes. Champagne is a really funny drink about glassware because back in the 20s, they would not have drank out of flutes. Flutes were not what champagne was served out. It was served out of a coupe glass. Am I saying that right? Coupe glass?
I don't know. I mean, that's new to me.
All right, it's a coupe glass, and it's what if you know you watch the Great Gatsby movies, and he's got that like kind of scooped up, you know, pretty like rounded glass. You know, Leonardo DiCaprio's like, oh, with the coupe glass.
Oh yeah, the Leonardo movie.
Yes. So that's a coupe glass. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. If not, correct me in the comments. But anyway, the old wives' tale is that it was modeled on Marie Antoinette's breast.
I know where we're going with this one now. Okay.
Yeah. So the idea, back when champagne first started being regularly consumed, the idea was the bubbles were kind of an affront to society. So you wanted the bubbles to effervesce and get the heck out of Dodge as quickly as possible. So with a coupe glass, it's got like a wide open top, and not only, I mean, it's impractical because you spill the shit out of your drink as you're walking around, but the bubbles dissipate very quickly. It doesn't allow for much aroma because the top is quite open.
It outgasses immediately.
Yeah, it's all out of there. So, you know, around the middle of the 20th century, right, you know, right around the 50s or so, you started to see a shift to flutes. And the idea is to put champagne in flutes because it actually held the bubbles in more. So you were allowed to have the effervescence for much longer in your beverage. And it allowed to consolidate the aroma of the beverage at the top. And some people even, there was like a little notch at the bottom of their glasses that would actually, you know, stimulate additional, you know, bubbles for the champagne. So that was a big thing. Well, guess what? The world is shifting, and now champagne flutes are going out of style.
Oh.
They are. Sorry, you're behind the times.
Oh, my God.
Now people are drinking champagne more and more out of white wine glasses, which are, you know, a little fatter, a little more scooped. And the idea is that this holds the bubbles and the aroma too much in. It doesn't allow you to really experience the aroma because it's too narrow. So the idea is to have like kind of a cross. It's a compromise between the old coupe glasses and the champagne flutes. Well, I don't have any coupe glasses, so we're drinking out of champagne flutes here. So here we go. All right. Yeah, baby.
Nice one.
I'm just not going to ruin my... Do you know I used to be afraid to do that?
Really?
Oh my gosh! Oops, there goes the cord. Yeah, I used to. I'd be like, ah, I'd like squeal and scream and stuff. But yeah, bartending kind of like, you know, you just don't care about that anymore. So here we go. All right. This is just a little bit. We'll drink more later once we're offline, and we're not going to say like bad stuff that we probably shouldn't be saying. So there we go. All right, champagne. Now the deal with this champagne is at the very end of Wooden Nickels at the Fontainebleau. Hattie is there waiting for Vincent, and he comes in, and Leon goes and gets some champagne, and supposedly it's for Hattie and Vincent, but I'm not going to tell you what happens, but there's like an interesting little funny occurrence that happens in there, you know, where Hattie takes one, and Vincent almost gets deprived of the second one. In fact, he does get deprived of it, but Hattie almost ends up with two, so. Here we go, champagne!
Nice.
Woo! Not bad.
Very, very dry.
That's how I like it. All right, we're at the end of our drinking through Wooden Nickels. And Bum's Rush, which is book 2 in the White Lightning series, releases tomorrow. And book 3 is loaded and locked. Well, actually, I have one more edit that I have to do, but the pre-order is up, and once I get that edit, final document's going to be up, and that releases November 13th. So you guys are going to be getting that November 13th, and we are currently working on book 4.
Yes.
Which book 4 rocks.
It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a barnstormer.
Oh really my gosh. It's like action. So you guys are going to love it. So enjoy. I hope you guys had a good time. I will post recipes later. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you soon. Bye.